Cambyses II's lost Persian army, swallowed by the desert. Picture this: 50,000 men, armored and armed, banners fluttering, their spears like a forest of steel, marching across the golden sands of Egypt in 525 BC. This was no ordinary army. This was the pride of the Persian Empire, the world's first true superpower under King Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great. Their mission: to erase an ancient god's voice from history, the oracle of Amen at Siwa Oasis. But here's the mystery: they never arrived. They never returned. 50,000 soldiers simply vanished into the desert. Some say they were destroyed by a catastrophic sandstorm. Others whisper of betrayal, curses, and the wrath of gods. Today, over 2,500 years later, archaeologists are still searching for their bones, their weapons, and their story. So what really happened to Cambyses' lost army, a king with fire in his veins? To understand the mystery, we need to start with the man behind the campaign, Cambyses II. When his father, Cyrus the Great, died, Cambyses inherited the throne of Persia, the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. Yet Cambyses was not remembered for his father's wisdom. Ancient Greek historians like Herodotus paint him as a tyrant, ambitious, paranoid, and ruthless. In 525 BC, Cambyses invaded Egypt, crushing Pharaoh Psamtik III and making Egypt a Persian satrapy. But conquest wasn't enough. Cambyses wanted not just political domination, he wanted to humiliate Egypt's gods. And that's where the oracle of Amen comes in. The oracle at Siwa Oasis, deep in the Libyan desert, was sacred to the Egyptians and even respected by foreign rulers. Amen was no ordinary god, he was the Hidden One, a deity of mystery, whose voice was said to speak through priests. Pharaohs and generals traveled hundreds of miles to consult it. Even Alexander the Great would one day visit this oracle, seeking divine legitimacy. But Cambyses had no reverence for it. To him, the oracle of Amen was a symbol of Egyptian pride and resistance. So he made a decision. He would send an army of 50,000 to march across the desert and destroy it forever. It was a decision that would go down in history as one of the most baffling military mysteries of all time. The march into the sands, 50,000 Persian soldiers setting out from Thebes' modern Luxor, their ranks stretching for miles. The desert sun beat down on their helmets, the dunes shimmered like golden waves, and every step carried them further from civilization. According to Herodotus, they marched 7 days westward, reaching the city of Oasis, likely Karga Oasis. From there, they pressed on toward Siwa, hundreds of kilometers into the desert, but they never made it. Herodotus writes, as they were crossing the desert, a great and violent wind arose, bringing with it vast quantities of sand, which buried them all, buried alive. An entire army, swallowed whole by the desert. It's a haunting image: shields, spears, and bodies entombed beneath the dunes, waiting to be rediscovered by future generations. But is that really what happened? Was it the wrath of the gods? The story quickly became legendary. To the Egyptians, the army's disappearance was divine justice. How dare Cambyses challenge Amen, the hidden god of the desert? The sandstorm, they believed, was Amen's vengeance, unleashing the desert itself as a weapon. For centuries, this tale became part of the oracle's mystique. The desert, vast and merciless, was its protector, but skeptics argue otherwise. Was it really divine punishment? Or was there something more human, more political behind the disappearance? Theories behind the mystery. Over the years, historians and archaeologists have offered several theories about what really happened to Cambyses' army. Let's unravel the possibilities. 1. The sandstorm theory, the classic version. A massive sandstorm, possibly a Khamsin wind, buried the soldiers alive. These storms are not myths. They can whip across the Sahara with hurricane-force winds, blotting out the sun and carrying walls of sand miles high. But skeptics point out, how could a sandstorm kill 50,000 men at once? Couldn't some have escaped? 2. Starvation and thirst. Marching an army across hundreds of kilometers of desert requires careful planning. Did Cambyses underestimate the journey? It's possible the army ran out of food and water, succumbing not to sand, but to starvation and thirst. The desert doesn't forgive logistical mistakes. 3. Betrayal or ambush. Some historians suspect foul play. Perhaps local desert tribes like the Libu or the Nasamons ambushed the Persians, using the dunes as cover. Others believe Cambyses' own generals may have turned on him, sacrificing the army in rebellion. 4. Did the army ever exist? Here's a radical thought. What if the entire story was an invention? Some scholars argue that Greek historians exaggerated or fabricated the tale to portray Cambyses as cursed and reckless. After all, the desert hides its secrets. Well, maybe there was never an army to find. The modern hunt for the lost army. The legend of Cambyses' army has lured adventurers and archaeologists for centuries. In the 19th century, European explorers like Heinrich Barth scoured the desert, but found nothing. In the 20th century, archaeologists launched several expeditions, each hoping to uncover a battlefield frozen in sand. In 2009, two Italian researchers, the Castiglione brothers, announced a sensational discovery: scattered bones, weapons, and arrowheads near Siwa. They claimed they had finally found traces of Cambyses' army. The world buzzed with excitement. But Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities dismissed the find as inconclusive, accusing the Italians of exaggeration. To this day, no definitive evidence of the lost army has been uncovered. It remains one of archaeology's greatest white whales. Why the story still haunts us? Why does this mystery still capture our imagination after 2,500 years? Because it has everything: a powerful king blinded by arrogance, a sacred oracle defying destruction, a desert that swallows men whole, and a mystery that refuses to be solved. It's the perfect storm of history and legend. The line between fact and myth blurs until they become inseparable. Perhaps that's why the story endures. It's less about the literal truth and more about what it symbolizes: the hubris of empires, the limits of human ambition, and the eternal power of the natural world. Epilogue: Lessons from the Sands. When you stand at the edge of the Sahara today, looking out at its endless dunes, it's easy to imagine them still out there, the lost army of Cambyses, sleeping beneath the sands. Maybe one day archaeologists will uncover the truth: rusted bronze weapons, tattered shields, the ghostly remains of men who marched into legend. Or maybe the desert will keep its secret forever, guarding the lost army as fiercely as Amun himself. Either way, the story of Cambyses' vanished soldiers remains one of history's most tantalizing mysteries, a reminder that sometimes the desert doesn't just test men, it consumes them.